Lisa Nelson is a rock star. Lisa, thank you. How about a round of applause for your great leader? Well, welcome to Texas. Is everyone ready to move here now? Yeah, not really. I understand. It is a little warm outside, but we're so happy to have you, and what an honor to have you here, and I'm just so grateful to be here. I want to do a quick shout out to some of my Texas legislators. I know they're out in the audience a little bit, and today we'll talk a little bit about the model of freedom and liberty and what it does for all Americans, but especially what it does for the least among us. One other quick thing, which I'm not really supposed to do because I'm supposed to stay very on script because I'm, at the White House now. But I want to tell you something that is off script. I have been working for this president now as an assistant to the president, which is the very top, for more than a year. And it has been, and in fact, it's funny when I said I was taking a leave from the Texas Public Policy Foundation to join the administration. A lot of people said, that's amazing. But a lot of people said, "Ooh, are you sure?" And I will tell you, it has been the most joyful, honorable experience of my entire life. Every day I get to walk into the West Wing and I get to work for a man who is relentless and tireless and convicted and fighting for this country every single day. And I see it every day in the Oval Office. I see it every day when he's engaging with the press. I see it every day in the decisions that he makes. It's not about the lobby. It's not about the media. It's not about the elite. It is about this country and what we need to do to ensure that every man, woman, and child has a real shot at the American dream. So it's an honor to be here, and please know that it couldn't be better in the White House, and what an extraordinary team we have up there, and thank you all for supporting that. Thank you. So I grew up, it's really good to be back in Texas. I've been here my entire life, except the last year and a half with my little detour up to Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue. As many of you know, and Lisa mentioned in my introduction, I'm such a champion for real reform at the state level, but fighting and winning at the state level and leading the Texas Public Policy Foundation, working with our Texas legislators over the last 15 years. Before that, at the very beginning of Governor Rick Perry's tenure, which was about 87 years ago, I was his policy director and his deputy general counsel. So having fought and won at the state level for so many years really instills a deep level of appreciation for the wonders of federalism. That system, one where each individual state has the freedom to discover what works best for its people, is the embodiment of our nation's founding ideals. The founders' vision for the states to share, to explore, to learn, and to perfect governance and policy together, each informing the other, so that a more perfect union emerged. From below was always the intent. It was never supposed to be imposed from above. Yet imposing it from above is exactly what many, especially in Washington, D.C., want to see happen. They think they have the best ideas. They think they have the best plans. They think they know how best you in Texas, or you in Utah, or you in Illinois, or you in Washington State. They know how best to govern you and the people that live there. Federalism and ALEC and you frustrate all of that. And the truth is, the forces of liberty are winning because freedom and liberty are true and they're righteous and they are proven again and again. My friends here at ALEC, for those, so many of you, hundreds of you that are state legislators and serving in your states in the legislature, we know all this to be true because it is you who are the living embodiment of this ideal every single day. States are truly the laboratories for democracy and the laboratories for success. We are seeing this play out today thanks to many of you in this room. Your bold activism and leadership and willingness to get in the fight have paved the way for an amazing opportunity in Washington, D.C., in the leadership of this president, but also in the transformational, life-changing, positive reforms seen every single day across this great country, in every single town and community. With President Donald J. Trump in the White House and with all of you leading on our shared conservative values and ideas from all 50 states, our economy is booming. Unemployment is all the way down to 3.6%. Wages are steadily rising, up 3% from just last year. The Small Business Optimism Index is at historic highs throughout this presidency. The percentage of Americans on food stamps is at the lowest number in 10 years. The number of jobs that are available is more than the number of people looking for jobs. This has never happened before. You all know the story. African American unemployment at the lowest on record. Hispanic American unemployment, the lowest on record. Asian American unemployment, the lowest on record. Disabled American unemployment, the lowest on record. Veteran unemployment, women unemployment. You know this story, you have heard it. But these statistics, they tell the story of a very prosperous economy, but the statistics are not the real story. Not even the economy is the real story. The real story is not in the numbers. It is in an American home, in American neighborhoods, and in American communities across this great nation, and most of all, in American dreams. A flourishing economy means an inner city neighborhood experiences revival and restoration for the first time in generations. A wealth of opportunity means a young high school graduate can actually build his future. A dynamic landscape of liberty means a single mother can start a small business to support her 3 young daughters. Our success is not in the statistics. Our success is in the hearts and the hopes of men and women and children that you and I will never meet. Too many people in Washington think we are the owners of their lives. That mindset is very common and is completely wrong. We are not the owners of their lives. We are the stewards of their freedom. Thank you. And this doesn't just happen. This sort of economy didn't just happen, and it's probably not because of President Barack Obama, although they're taking credit. But this economy is happening because we are seeing the tremendous success because our ideas are winning. When a commitment to free markets, to free enterprise, and to our fellow citizens inform our policymaking, America is better for it. Our charge is the guardianship of these ideals for the benefit of Americans today and tomorrow. And whether you have a PhD or a high school diploma, whether you have plenty in savings or you're struggling to make ends meet, whether you come from a suburban neighborhood or a farm town or the inner city, equality of opportunity and widespread human flourishing and self-governance in America are the framework under which our founding fathers aspired. And finally, we see these policies understood and supported by the current occupant in the White House and enacted every single day in Washington, D.C. As I mentioned at the beginning, again, a little off script, I am honored to work for President Donald J. Trump, who has gladly championed the forgotten American. This man, my boss, is a true warrior, and his conservative ideas and policies, the result of our ideas winning the day, the result of so many of you also warriors who have fought at the state level for so long, are the why behind the incredible statistics in the story I just told a few moments ago. Take a look at this president's historic tax bill, for example. Of course, the bill delivered game-changing tax relief. It also created opportunity zones, and obviously those encouraging investment in distressed economic areas. This provision is bringing capital into the places that need it the most. You may have heard that the president has been speaking a little recently about Baltimore and the sad situation there. The president is shining a light on the failure of the so-called progressive policies to empower citizens in our cities. It is so unfortunate what is going on in places like Baltimore right now. But it also provides us with the most unique opportunity to show the men and women living in these places that there is a better way forward. The example of Baltimore is instructive. Thank you. Because its status as an essentially failed and desperate minor metropolis is effectively new, it is easy to forget that until 1970, Baltimore was one of the top 10 American cities for all of American history. It was in the middle of the 19th century, the two largest American cities were New York City and Baltimore. There's a reason our national anthem is a song about the defense of Baltimore against an enemy fleet. The story of that defense, the failed British attack on Fort McHenry, was once celebrated as an example of a free people in arms. And in 1840, the British routed federal forces and burned Washington, D.C., and then utterly failed against the people and militia of Baltimore. How did Baltimore descend in just 1 or 2 generations from a shining example of American endurance and one of America's top cities to a distressed and violent city in decline? It's a question that needs to be asked, and God bless this president for asking it. Baltimore, glorious Baltimore, home of so much American history and so much American pride, is indeed a warning. Americans deserve better. And this president and you all have their back. We have their back. Failing schools condemn our brightest young children to a generation of education, to welfare, to incarceration pipeline. For many years, our criminal justice system warehoused and processed these Americans, churning them through the prison experience with little regard for reentry into society. The opioid crisis is claiming too many lives while robbing Americans of the one thing that can keep anybody going, and that is hope. And a lack of economic opportunity, which can sometimes be coupled with development that displaces members of the very community instead of employing and empowering them, has undermined the promise of the American dream in too many of our cities. But our work in Washington and your work in your home states is about transforming America back into the land of opportunity for all Americans. Far from accepting the status quo in our cities, this president has pushed for change that puts Americans first. Just last year, y'all may be getting a little tired of me coming to the ALEC meeting, but just last year in New Orleans, Louisiana, okay, thank you, Lisa. I stood in front of many of you, and I asked for your support of the landmark criminal justice reform bill, the First Step Act, that was making its way very slowly through the process in Washington, D.C. Just a year ago, if you remember, that bill finally made it, thanks to so many of you, to the president's desk. And last December, we stood in the Oval Office with the president and signed one of the most significant criminal justice reform bills in a generation, and perhaps many generations. And I think thank you. Thanks to so many of you in your states. I think I have to mention just for one moment that really going to the laboratories of success and what we're talking about, that idea all started more than a decade ago right here in Texas at a little think tank I used to run called the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And we realized that Texas and that America had it all wrong on criminal justice, that while having only 4% of the world's population, to have 25% of the world's incarcerated was not right. And that most of those, 93% of those men and women, were coming back into our communities. And year after year, we cycled people through our prisons and then sent them back into society with no hope of turning their lives around. So it was no wonder that the rate of return to crime has been so high for so long. Policymakers at the federal level had done almost nothing to encourage prisoners to change their lives. The push for criminal justice reform began at the state level, right here in Austin, Texas. Conservatives showed that the reforms just passed on the state level do indeed lower government costs and lead to better outcome. In America's laboratories of success, we proved beforehand that the First Step Act will work. In Texas, over the last 10 years, we've closed 8 adult prisons, 11 juvenile facilities, invested in rehabilitation and drug courts, changed our occupational licensing rules, strengthened our education opportunities for inner city children through charter schools, stronger charter schools, unleashed our economy through lower taxes and less regulation. Poverty rates fell, unemployment fell. The crime rate went down 30%, more than 30% in that time. Does this sound familiar? President Trump embraced transformative criminal justice reform that both made our streets safer and allowed the men and women returning from prison to get a second chance at life. In just a moment, you're going to hear from really the real star of the show, my friend Charles Matthews, who is an extraordinary, extraordinary man and has an amazing story to tell. The policies that we're all working on have real everyday effects and are turning lives around. We just can't afford that wasted potential any longer. Every life is precious, and every American citizen has a role to play in achieving our shared national destiny. In addition to criminal justice reform, this administration kicking off a major mobilization against the crisis of opioid addiction, fighting hard to give more school choice to our nation's children, a priority of this president, and expanding workforce development and apprenticeships for the American worker. Every American city and town, every single one, should be the envy of the world, the kind of place that its citizens are proud to call home. Each major metropolitan area in the United States, from Detroit to Austin, from San Francisco to Cincinnati, from Pittsburgh to Albuquerque, should be nothing less than an international hub of culture, of commerce, and of opportunity. Our ideas, the ideas espoused and fought for by so many of you in this room, by the amazing ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, by your partners, by the elected officials here, our ideas are the roadmap to a bright future, and our travels are only just beginning. And we will know when we have reached the end of our journey, when we see the results in the lives, the dreams, and the opportunities of every American family and every American home, and will settle for no less. In closing, just a little bit of a personal story. I kind of know what it's like to be one of those Americans wondering what was at the end of the road. I remember being a little girl in that tiny Texas town called Glen Rose, population 1,168, when my mother gathered my 2 sisters and me and said, times are changing. Our dad wasn't going to be around as much anymore, and we were going to make it on our own. So my mother did something very Texan and very American. She started a small business. It was a little flower shop on a little country town square in a little town. And that flower shop, that small business, kept us together. It kept us in a home. It kept us in school. And it kept us okay. I remember those days vividly, every day coming home from school, working in the flower shop, helping my mother behind the counter and studying with my books. I learned that good and hard work, a refusal to quit, and a love of family and neighbors truly were the difference between poverty and prosperity. And is that not the American dream that today we are so charged to defend? My story is probably not much different from many of you in this room, and certainly many across this country, overcoming hardship in varying degrees to live out our destiny. Our country should afford people the opportunity to do just that. We worked hard, we prayed, and we believed in the promise of a better future. I am so honored to be standing in front of you today, and I will say every day that I walk into that West Wing, and every day that I have the opportunity to fight for this country, and every single day where we work to make sure that the forgotten men and women who have been forgotten for so long are forgotten no more, is the greatest honor of my life. And to know that in this country, anything is possible. The small town girl raised by a single mom in a town of 1,000 people who went off and studied agriculture on a scholarship scholarship at Texas A&M could someday walk into the West Wing and be a part of transforming this country, that's not because of me. That's because of this country where anything is possible, no matter what color your skin, no matter where you're from, no matter who your parents are, no matter what your education background is. Anything is truly possible. It's overwhelming. Another little one-off, I will say I get a little emotional about how amazing and overwhelming and what an honor this opportunity is. And someone said, don't cry in front of the president. He doesn't like to see the tears. I said, okay, I'll keep it all in when I'm in the Oval Office. But it really is it's a remarkable opportunity, and to all work with all of you is just extraordinary. In closing, I urge you to keep battling for that promise, an America that works for the least among us, an America fit for big dreams, an America in which our minority fellow citizens flourish as never before, an America where forgotten communities rediscover hope for the first time, and an America where a mother can gather her daughters, share hard and painful news, and nevertheless thrive. Taken together, our policies of freedom and liberty and free enterprise and entrepreneurship are about achieving prosperity for all Americans. Conservative policies lift up the forgotten man and woman and will keep the American dream within reach for each one of us. And in this battle of ideas, I am so grateful to have this amazing organization, ALEC, and each and every one of you on our side, relentlessly advocating and fighting for the beliefs that we know to be true and right and good. You have put yourself on the line for this fight. You have all pledged your lives, your fortunes, and your sacred honor for it. And I admire your sacrifice. It is very American, and I have to say it's also very Texan. The president and this administration have seen an unprecedented 2.5 years of results for the American people. There is no doubt this is in large part because of all of you standing on the front lines fighting for this country. This White House stands on your shoulders now, and I want you to know that this good and righteous fight that we are all in together will be won. It will be won because of this president, because of you, and because, as the great Margaret Thatcher once said, there is no alternative. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the great state of Texas, and God bless America. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.